Hello, everyone. I'm Artaza-Regan. I am the program manager at Catholic Climate Covenant, and I'd like to welcome you to this evening plenary, an update on the Vatican Laudato Si Action Plan, plus some very important covenant announcements that we are sure you're going to want to hear. Let us get started. First, of course, some housekeeping slides, as we call them. Thanks to the generous donations from many of the conference participants, we are able to offer Spanish interpretation. To access the feature, you need to click the interpretation icon at the bottom of your Zoom screen and select Spanish. I'd like to thank all those who gave donations for this feature that can help our Spanish-speaking sisters and brothers. The session, yes, it is being recorded, and the recordings will be sent to all registered participants sometimes early next week. Please enter your questions in the QA box, and if you know which panelist the question is for, that would really be helpful because we have a full house. We need to be able to distinguish who you're asking the question to. Chat is probably not the best place for questions for panelists. Try to use that one more for interaction between yourselves or just a little bit of camaraderie. Please remember that you can close or minimize the chat box or move it so that it doesn't interfere with your view of the slides or the speaker. You would join me in prayer, as we always try to start all of our meetings with a prayer to center ourselves, to remind us that God is with us. And this is a prayer from Interfaith Power and Light's Faith Climate Action Week resource. We hold the earth. We hold brothers and sisters who suffer from storms and droughts intensified by climate change. We hold all species that suffer. We hold leaders delegated to make decisions for life. We pray for the web of life, that the web of life may be mended through courageous actions to limit carbon emissions. We pray for right actions for adaptation and mitigation to help our already suffering Earth community. We pray that love and wisdom might inspire our actions as communities, so that we may, with integrity, look into the eyes of brothers and sisters and all beings and truthfully say, we are doing our part to care for them and the future of all of our children. May love transform us and our world with new steps towards life. Amen. I repeated this slide because in this slide, you have the entire list of who is joining us today. You do not need to memorize everybody. I assure you, you will know them in a few minutes. We will get started though with a land acknowledgement. We are doing these in most of our sessions. We started it with the Mass this morning. And if you missed it then, put a new one here for you today. Most of us that are tuning in this evening live on the ancestral and treaty lands of Indigenous people, lands that are rich in history and modern traditions. Land acknowledgements are customary among many Indigenous communities as a sign of respect and reverence. For non-Native people, they are a simple way to combat the systemic erasure of Indigenous people. This is especially timely as we come to terms with the taking of Native youth from their families and placed in residential schools or foster families throughout the late 19th and 20th centuries in the United States and Canada, and the present day epidemic of missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls. As we gather today on ancestral and treaty lands, we as a Catholic community have the responsibility to honor and respect the four directions: land, water, plants, animals, ancestors that walked before us, and all the wonderful elements of creation that exist. Today, we honor all the tribal nations from across Turtle Island. We acknowledge that our conference's sponsoring organizations, Catholic Climate Covenant and Creighton University, are Anacatanktant and Piscataway lands and Omaha lands, respectively. And we would like to express our gratitude for sharing these lands for our mutual benefit. I ask that you take a moment and acknowledge the traditional caretakers of the land where you live, and commit to learning more about your Indigenous communities if you have not done yet that so. We will pause so you can do that. And if you'd like, you can add your land acknowledgement in the chat box. If you're not sure, you can look it up using Native Land tool, native-land.ca. In this webinar, it is my hope that at the end of this session, you will leave with a clear understanding of what the Laudato Si Action Platform is, how you and your community can engage with the platform, and what resources and actions and ideas will help you engage with the platform and have your community get involved. In May 2021, on the 6th anniversary of Laudato Si, Cardinal Peter Turkson, prefect for the Dicastery for the Promotion of Integral Development, stated, "The cry of the earth and the poor is becoming more and more heartbreaking. And the message from our scientists and our young people is increasingly alarming. We are destroying our future." With this very scary warning, he set the stage for what he called the soft launch of the Laudato Si Action Platform, LSAP, as you'll hear it sometimes called, which is a 7-year journey towards an integral ecology. Catholic Climate Covenant was named the hub or convener of the Laudato Si Action Platform and its works in the United States. We are grateful for the enthusiastic support of all our partners as we seek to lift the U.S. Catholic Church's commitment to Laudato Si. The platform will formally launch on October 4th on the Feast of St. Francis. Until then, U.S. representatives to the Vatican 7 sector working groups are meeting with other regional and national Catholic representatives to ensure that the platform responds to different regional needs and appropriate resources. The 7 sectors are, as I've listed them there: families, parishes and dioceses, religious orders, educational institutions, hospitals, healthcare institutions, economic entities, organizations, and groups. These 7 working groups are collaborating to create action templates with measurable footsteps, resources, materials, action plans, and metrics for the 7 goals of the platform. The 7 goals are response to the cry of the earth, response to the cry of the poor, ecological economics, adoption of simple lifestyles, ecological education, ecological spirituality, and community involvement and participatory action. You will get to hear from the U.S. representatives to these sector working groups in a few minutes. But right now, let us hear a special message to all conference attendees from Father Josh Kureethadam, who is leading the Laudato Si Action work at the Vatican, and he is coordinator of the sector of ecology and creation at the Dicastery for Promoting Human Development.
Hello, best wishes and greetings from the Vatican Dicastery for Promoting Integral Human Development. It is indeed a great joy for me to join the second US Laudato Si conference. And I would like to thank in a very special way the Catholic Climate Covenant for the kind invitation to join you and to share with you about the Laudato Si Action Platform that was launched by Pope Francis on 25th of May this year at the close of the Laudato Si year. 3 very simple reflections about the Laudato Si Action Platform, about the why of it, the what of it, and the how of it. Why did Pope Francis announce the special Laudato Si Action Platform? In the context of the pandemic, it's the invitation to prepare the future together. Now, the why can be summed up as a response to the 3 cries, the cry of the earth and the cry of the poor, of which Laudato Si speaks in paragraph 49. And then we will see also the cry of the youth and of our children, especially the cry of the earth, listening to the warnings from the scientific community. Now, at the Dicastery at the Vatican, we began working on the Laudato Si Action Platform nearly 3 years ago, when in 2018, there was the landmark Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change's report on the 1.5 degrees centigrade that told us very clearly that to remain within the catastrophic limit of 1.5 degrees centigrade, humanity had in 2018 something like a dozen years, 12 years. We are in 2021, and we do not even have a decade. So we are in an emergency. The climate crisis, for example, we are seeing it in the US West Coast, the heat wave these days, what happened in Canada, and what has been happening in Indonesia, the torrential rains in Japan, and elsewhere all over the world. And as you can see in the lower part of the slide, what the scientific community is really worried is that we are about to cross crucial tipping points. The Greenland ice sheet, for example, unfortunately, it has already started melting. And if it were to melt rapidly, it can raise sea levels by 6 to 7 meters in few centuries. By the end of the century, we are expecting something like 1 meter sea level rise. But also many others. The monsoons are shifting their course. The coral reefs are drying out. And even the West Antarctic ice sheet, which we thought was stable for many years, has now become unstable. But it's also the cry of the poor, as it is affecting food security, the health of the people. Imagine people in Bangladesh living in their homes for 2 to 3 months when floods come, flooded by water. And the climate crisis and other ecological factors are causing migration, displacement. Studies tell us 3 to 10 times more than all the other factors. And the current pandemic has only highlighted the cry of the earth. As Inger Anderson of the UNEP told very clearly, if the planet is not healthy, we cannot be healthy. And who are paying the price once again? Our own poor brothers and sisters. And to the cry of the earth and the cry of the poor, we need to add the cry of our children. Very prophetically, Pope Francis already asked in 2015 in Laudato Si, what kind of world do we want to leave to those who come after us, to children now who are now growing up? And the children themselves are putting this question to us, are telling us very clearly, don't mess with my future. So we are living in an emergency. And that is the why of the Laudato Si Action Platform, that we need to respond to this emergency. That's why Pope Francis on 24th of May 2020 gifted us the Laudato Si year. And at the close of the Laudato Si year, he has launched the Laudato Si Action Platform. And we come to the second point, the what of the Laudato Si Action Platform. This is very simple. It is a journey, a plan, a process to make communities around the world totally sustainable in the spirit of the integral ecology of Laudato Si. So It's a journey of ecological conversion in action, not just in words. So we are proposing a 7-year journey involving everyone, our families, our parishes and dioceses, our educational institutions, our schools and universities, our hospitals and healthcare centers, the world of economy, workers, businesses, cooperatives, farms, our organizations. So almost everyone, our NGOs, movements, groups, foundations, our communication centers, and seventhly, our religious orders, that we work together in the spirit of the integral ecology. So we are proposing 7 Laudato Si goals, but always inspired by this integral ecological vision spelled out in Laudato Si, that human life is grounded in 3 fundamental and closely intertwined relationships with God, with our neighbor, and with Earth itself. That's the way probably the Laudato Si goals are even deeper and even richer than the Sustainable Development Goals, because we have this integral vision. So we are inviting everyone that we respond to the cry of the earth in 7 years. So we use renewable energy, solar energy, for example, that we preserve water, we conserve biodiversity, that we respond to the cry of the poor. Otherwise, it won't be Laudato Si. That we always keep the most vulnerable at the center. Could be migrants, could be women trafficked, could be children who are working. And the third Laudato Si goal, that we change our economic paradigm, the way we do our purchasing, the way we invest our money. And the fourth Laudato Si goal at the micro level, that we begin with each one of us, changing our lifestyles. Then the 2 pillars of ecological education and spirituality, that we create awareness, we change our educational curricula, our catechesis program, but all these nourished by our faith in a God who is our creator. So the ecological, that we pray with the creation, that as we know, earth is God's own abode, where the holy event of incarnation took place. So earth is sacred from that point of view. And seventhly, we do all this as community. So this is the what of the Laudato Si Action Platform, a journey together with all the 7 sectors, beginning with families and all the other sectors, especially parishes and dioceses, but all the 7 sectors together in 7 years, following the 7 Laudato Si goals. And the third and the last point, how do we do it? Very simply, in partnership. For Francis is proposing to us this beautiful vision of the synodal church, that everyone's talents and initiatives are needed, as Laudato Si reminds us in paragraph 13, that we can rebuild, we can heal our common home only together. And the lower part of the slide, you can see this vision of the synodal church led by the Holy Spirit. As a community, we walk together, we work together, we journey together. So Laudato Si Action Platform is a journey in partnership. We have a steering board led by the Dicastery, but also with the Charities Internationalis, the Global Catholic Climate Movement, the Conference of Religious, SIDSE, the network of Catholic NGOs, the ecclesial networks, REPAM and REBAC in South America and Central America, REBAC in Africa, RAWON in Asia, and especially youth groups. We are very much working with youth groups. And in all the 7 sectors, we have hundreds of partners. And I would also like to take the occasion to thank the Catholic Climate Covenant and the US Bishops' Conference and many other organizations in the US. If not to flatter you, if I can say 10 Bishops' Conferences that are responding, or countries that are responding very positively to the Laudato Si Action Platform. As of now, Philippines leads it, but US will come certainly among the first 5 or 7. So thank you. And the journey does not end here. We begin in 2021 with the first group of people that join, our families, parishes, schools, dioceses, universities, businesses. And in so they begin their 7-year journey. The first year will go for planning, then 5 years of action, and the 7th year will be the sabbatical year. In 2022, we hope to invite a new group who will do their 7-year journey, 2023, another group, and each year we keep on growing exponentially. So we should be at least doubling year after year. And I conclude all this in view of creating the critical mass. Sociologists tell us that unless we reach the critical mass, we cannot have societal transformation. And the good news is that if we reach 3.5% of a group, we have the critical mass. And that's what we hope for. That's why it's so important that we work together. And we very much count on the leadership of the US Church, of the ecclesial faith communities in the US, and all people of goodwill. Thank you very much for what you're doing, and we really look forward towards working very much together with you. All the best for your conference, and thank you very much for listening to me. God bless.
That was a wonderful message from Father Josh, as we all call him. And I think it is a good start for the big panel that we have here for you. I was really, really happy when I put out the request to this group to step up and speak to you all about how their sector is working on Laudato Si Action Platform, how they are relating to the Vatican working groups already, and how at some point you might be able to engage with the sectors. So to get us started, a little information. In the US, we do not have a lead representative on the families working group. In the US, we're most likely going to be reaching families through all of the other sectors. But I want to start with the parishes and dioceses. Michael Terrian and Kat Doyle sit in that working group. I sit on that one also as a representative for the parishes through my work with creation care teams. And Michael and Kat will be giving us from the Archdiocese of Chicago and the Archdiocese of Atlanta, how they're working to engage with the platform. Michael, I believe you go first. Michael, could you be muted perhaps?
Yep.
Yeah, there you
Thank you. There I am again. First, I just want to thank you, Paz, and I want to thank the Catholic Climate Covenant and Creighton University for hosting the Laudato Si conference. This is so important, and through all of the pandemic, thank you, thank you, thank you. I'd like to begin with the plan that the Archdiocese of Chicago is pursuing in terms of the Laudato Si Action Platform. In it, again, Father Josh mentioned that this is a journey, and that we're recognizing that implementing the Laudato Si Action Platform is a process. And oftentimes we get a sense of urgency, but we also have to recognize the current reality that we're facing. And we have to look at how do we really do this in a way that's going to be effective for the long term. And so the process from the Archdiocese perspective is the way to achieving the Laudato Si goals. So we're very, very process oriented, and of course, trusting in the Holy Spirit. In that, the process, we're incorporating the principles of synodality, solidarity, and subsidiarity. Synodality in terms of collegiality, it's a way in which the different parts of the church come together as the mystical bodies of Christ. Solidarity in terms of unity of purpose. At the core of that is in terms of how the church manifests peace and justice, and subsidiarity is bringing it to the local level as possible, to the lowest level as possible, to ensure that it involves those who are closest or most affected by what's going on. And as Laudato Si is written, we use the See, Judge, Act model, see what the current reality, judge what do we want, what's working, what's not working, what do we want to do differently, and what is the action that we want to take in that. in that, this is a really critical piece, is that we're aligning the Laudato Si Action Platform goals with the diocese strategic goals. So that way there's value congruence between what this initiative is within the church and what the needs are of the diocese. So we're doing that within the context of building the new reality or the new evangelization. And so this is a very central point in terms of how the Archdiocese is pursuing the Laudato Si Action Platform. And community engagement obviously is critical to that. We're inviting dioceses and parishes into the planning process. When I say the diocese, I mean both vertically and horizontally. Yes, look at how we can engage the different functions within the Archdiocese, but also up and down in the organization, as well as the parishes. So community engagement is really key. Engagement, I mean in diocese leadership to champion the planning process, and then the engaging Laudato Si encyclical working group, which is a body within one of our departments. And so it includes representatives from the diocese, from parishes, and partner organizations. So it's a very inclusive process. And really, this is a key component to our core planning team. And then engaging the Office of Human Dignity and Solidarity, in which the Laudato Si encyclical working group is housed, and then expanding that out to the Department of Parish Vitality and Mission, and then the department leadership across the diocese. So it's a really integrated whole. And then of course, parishes with an emphasis on underserved community. So it's, again, vertical, horizontal, connecting everybody into the process, and especially listening and including the voice of the voiceless. And just to highlight and emphasize that this isn't being driven by one area, but it's a team effort. And I just want to here focus on this is the team on the Laudato Si Action Platform Committee and its champions. So you could see that it takes a whole community to manifest the platform. And on the outcomes and activities, this is a really key piece. So you have process and you have community engagement. And the next piece is looking at the outcomes and activities as vehicles to engage the stakeholders with specific tasks. So you're going to come to learn that in the 7 goal areas, each of them will have outcomes that are targets for us to achieve. And so in that are activities. For example, protect the climate. Activities can be install solar panels, insulate buildings, build renewable energy credits, install efficient appliances, or in the area of respond to the cry of the poor. Obviously, there's the protection of life, develop a series of public educational events and encourage the defense of human life from conception to natural death, ensure access to land and clean water. An activity for that would be to ensure that children are protected from air pollution in places. And I know I'm getting in the weeds a little bit, but I'm just citing a couple of examples. In terms of economics, ensure financial investments are ethical and sustainable. And then investing in socially responsible enterprises would be an example. So these are just a few of the examples of activities that serve as kind of a framework or footsteps that we call them in terms of achieving the outcomes that we desire. And implementing the process, again, focusing on the process, we're inviting stakeholders to identify the positive forces as well as the obstacles to implementing the planning process. We all can imagine the myriad of challenges that we're facing with each of our dioceses. And so it's really beginning to look at that honestly and say, these are the things that are going to propel us, and these are the things that are going to hinder us from achieving the outcomes we desire. And then continually check in with stakeholders to monitor and calibrate the planning process. And again, applying that see, judge, act model, and just recognizing that change takes consistency of purpose and time, and really trusting in the Holy Spirit and praying for that. By activating the diocese and parish involvement in the planning process, we secure greater long-term investment and cross-functional and parish collaboration in the implementation process. 2, we develop better plans to achieve Laudato Si Action Platform goals. 3, we further the local church's capacity to achieve its strategic goals. So it goes back to that alignment. We're creating community, which is fundamental to the platform. We generate resources, which is fundamental to the platform, and we're evangelizing the gospel of creation. So this is just a high level overview of the process that we're using to implement the Laudato Si Action Platform.
Thank you, Michael.
And thank you.
Kat, for Archdiocese of Atlanta, please.
Well, thank you, Paz, and thank you to everyone for having enough interest and passion in this work to join us this evening. For the Archdiocese of Atlanta, I'd like to maybe take you on a journey, if you will, of how we've gotten to where we are today. I think oftentimes if you can see where we've been and hear our story, it can help some of you get started and figure out where to go from where you are right now. So I start with this full thing that with the full support of then Archbishop Gregory, now Cardinal Gregory, the Archdiocese of Atlanta was, we believe, the first to create a Laudato Si Action Plan. And in November of 2015, we gathered a group of interfaith, interdisciplinary University of Georgia scientists who came together and looked at what Laudato Si was talking about and tried to transform that information into how we could take action to accomplish the things that the Pope was asking of us. Our original action plan had 10 chapters, and they do cover and overlap with the 7 areas of the Vatican's Laudato Si Action Platform. So we developed this action plan and we pushed it out far and wide. We made sure that the Pope had a copy of our action plan. We also made sure organizations such as Al Gore's Environmental Leadership Group had it, that large congregations like Ebenezer Baptist Church, which was Martin Luther King Jr.'s home church, had that plan, and they actually adopted our action plan to their congregation. We also pushed it out to various dioceses, both here in the US and around the globe. So part of what we were trying to do was share what we had learned, share what the people who had come up with, and make sure that we weren't hoarding this as our resource, but as a resource to be shared. From that, we moved into a pilot program or a pilot project in 2017. We brought together some concerned Catholics and some representatives of groups such as Georgia Interfaith Power and Light, South Face, the EPA. And we had some benefactors that stepped up and said, we're willing to put some money up to help you get something started. And with that very great willingness to help us fund some work, we were able to do a pilot project. It included 12 schools or 12 parishes and schools, a total of 12 sites. And we mostly concentrated on making sure we were doing energy and water audits, as well as a 3-year action plan that once we got those audits done, those parishes or schools then had something that they could follow, some goals to accomplish, some places to go. And this is very similar to what you heard from Father Josh when he talked about starting a group and then they go through this plan. That's what our model looked like as well. From there, the results that we got were measurable, and we were encouraged by some philanthropists in the area to go bigger, to go further, and to go faster, and to get results, to be a leader and to develop a model that any Catholic organization, school, parish, diocese, anywhere could follow. So we didn't have a lot of available archdiocesan funding, and we turned to generous contributions so that we were able to fund a bigger plan. So with those first dollars that we brought in, we actually were able to set up a couple of Laudato Si coordinators. We had one coordinator that we brought in that focused on strategy, which included fundraising. And we had a second coordinator that came in that focused on programs, which included those audits that we did and those 3-year plans afterwards. So we brought on the 2 coordinators, and from that, we developed a Laudato Si initiative. This initiative, which included a 32-page professional working plan, developed this work plan that allows us to have a 7 to 10 year Laudato Si initiative. And once again, this overlaps beautifully with what the Vatican is looking at doing now. From the Laudato Si initiative, we were able to develop and use this as an overlay with the Vatican's Laudato Si Action Platform. So we're able to take, very similar to what Chicago is doing, where we're taking what the Vatican has done and taking what we have done and put those things together to make it very unique to the Archdiocese of Atlanta. So one of the things that I'd like to make sure people understand about what we've been doing is, one, we have done everything we've been doing primarily with outside funds. So we needed to do fundraising. We needed to be able to find ways to bring in the funding necessary to do the work. And to do that, we have developed strong working relationships with our Catholic parishes, with our clergy, but also with outside business organizations and outside environmental institutions. We've developed 3 tiers of work. The first tier is an advisory roundtable, which is a network of funders, of people with expertise, and people of influence. And they work at a very high level, helping us to understand where we might be able to look to get the money, to get the expertise, and to get the critical mass necessary to get some things done. Our second is a working group, and these are the parish and school contacts that have done the work already, or at least started the work. And with that, they are able to tell us some of the challenges that they've overcome, roadblocks to be aware of in doing the work, but they also are able to share success stories. There is one particular of our parishes that their business manager found out where to get all the light bulbs necessary for all the different sizes. So he has shared that so that not every parish has to go through that same type of work, of legwork. So we're cutting out this duplication of effort and energy. And finally, and what I think is one of the most exciting things we're doing, is an at-large green team. We call it the Archdiocese of Atlanta's Creation Care Team, and that acronym is ACT, and it's Act of Faith. Anyone can join us, and the idea is to learn more about this. We have podcasts that we're getting ready to push out. We've got all of these great references and resources that people can learn about. But with that also, we know that when Father Josh talked about critical mass, this is our way of creating a movement. And from that movement, one of the things that we've talked a lot about and found out through our work is that we first have to change hearts, then we can change minds, and then we can change behaviors. And so we have been able to focus on that. And finally, I think what's important about this is that we're not looking at a certification. We're looking at what we're calling our green ribbons of excellence. So those schools and those parishes that are doing these things, that are looking at the Laudato Si Action Platform, we're going to give them the opportunity to make a mark, to earn a green ribbon of excellence, and to be somebody who's using our model, and somebody can use their model then to move forward. Just a couple last things, and I know, Paz, you need me to hurry up. We did ask our Bishop Joel, one of our auxiliary bishops, to come on as our chaplain. So I know a lot of people talk about where are the clergy in this. We made sure from the very beginning to the very end that we have our clergy involved in this. And we are doing that through a refreshed Laudato Si action plan in the Archdiocese of Atlanta that will be rolling out in October on the 4th, the same day as the Vatican project. It will include not only a refreshed action plan that we've updated to be more Georgia-centric and more action-oriented, but it will also have an interactive website and an electronic version of the plan. lots more going on, but there's just some of what we've done. We hope that you guys will start a journey like we have.
Thank you, Kat. Yes, you guys are really champions, and I'm sure that you'll be getting calls from others. Moving right along, I'm going to call on the religious orders. And I'm going to just say that if you think parishes and diocese working group is doing far along work, the sisters and the men religious, they've got everybody beat. So right now I'm calling on Sister Anne and Bethany, and which I think Sister Anne, you might go first. I'm not sure how you decided to do it.
I am. Thank you, Paz. You're way too kind. I am Ann Schultz. I'm a school sister of Notre Dame and the Associate Director for Social Mission at the Leadership Conference of Women Religious. Our members represent about 38,000 Catholic sisters across the United States. And together with Bethany Welch, who is the Justice Fellow at the Conference of Major Superiors of Men, and with the leadership of our counterparts in Rome, we are helping to facilitate the Laudato Si journey of religious here in the United States. So I want to give you a very quick look at our international efforts, and then Bethany will say something about how we're moving forward at the national level. So religious have been involved in eco-spirituality and environmental justice for a very long time. Pope Francis's encyclical, I think, fueled the already deep desire of many religious to live in right relationship with all of God's creation. So for many years, religious women and men have educated, organized, and advocated for eco-justice. They've explored the writings of theologians like Elizabeth Johnson and Ilia Dilio, written curricula, founded eco-spirituality centers, put their lands in trust, greened their buildings, and organized community gardens. They've leveraged their investments to hold corporations accountable for their environmental policies and practices, and they've lobbied officials at every level of government, from the United Nations to city councils. All of that experience informs the current efforts of the religious order sector. So we're blessed to have a very robust global structure, ably led by members of the Justice, Peace, and Integrity of Creation Commission of the International Unions of Superiors of Women's and Men's Congregations. They've already offered numerous webinars to introduce religious to the Laudato Si Action Platform and to spotlight examples of how religious orders are already engaging with the journey. They've developed a learning platform that houses resources and allows for ongoing self-paced learning about Laudato Si and the Action Platform. They support the Sowing Hope for the Planet campaign, the website, and the YouTube channel. And they're leading efforts to develop tools for the journey, to collect data about where we are and where we're going, and to document the efforts of religious orders. While it's way too early to suggest that we've learned many lessons, we have identified 4 principles that we think can help guide religious orders planning and their onward journey. Perhaps you too will find them helpful. So first, we suggest that everything must be grounded in the Institute's own charism, culture, and reality. If there are 200 religious congregations making the journey, there will be 200 unique itineraries. Second, build on what you're already doing and integrate the journey into your planning cycle. You heard that same suggestion from our brothers and sisters at the diocese and parish sector. Third, keep it simple, inspiring, and flexible. We're going to make this journey by walking it. And fourth, focus on communal action for systemic change. Conversion to integral ecology must necessarily be both personal and structural, because what we seek is nothing short of transformation. So we're blessed to have strong leadership at the global level, committed to helping hundreds of congregations of religious across all 5 continents undertake this journey of systemic transformation. That's a very quick look at our global efforts. Let me turn to Bethany and ask her to give us a peek at what our efforts at the national level look like. Bethany?
Thanks so much, Sister Ann. As was mentioned, I represent the Conference of Major Superiors of Men. It's about 16,000 priests and brothers across the United States. We have about 260 members who are superiors. So again, a leadership conference very similar to LCWR. And the charge that we've been given from the Dicastery working group is to convene U.S. religious orders. And so Ann and I were really excited to team up on this effort. And so one of the things that began this journey was to have our two conferences write letters to the superiors to ask them to please designate someone within their congregation to be the Laudato Si Action Platform person. So we're calling them LSAP promoters, and we asked them to join a very simple Google group. As I come from a public policy background, and I would say, similar to our friends in the diocese, this is an unfunded mandate, right? And so we're using a Google group. We're using basic technology. We're using a shared email account to convene these members. But it's amazing what a gift it is to collaborate together across the conferences on a common goal and a common theme for our common home. We have 217 members who are identified from the various leadership teams and who are longstanding environmental advocates and activists, and people who are very new to this work. So this 217 or 230, depending on which screen I'm looking at, group of folks have convened twice. We've had two workshop webinars with, again, close to 200 people on each, to be in dialogue about the public commitment component of the Laudato Si Action Platform, the discernment process. Is this our year to propose a plan, or is this our year for collective discernment? We've had wonderful conversations. I just had a small group discussion with a group of folks on Monday, and we had a congregation of 15 members, and then we had a congregation of 3,000. Right. And so the household, which is one geographic site of 15 members, their work is very personal and very collective at a household level. And that's the scope of the entire congregation. And then for others, they not only have their day-to-day life as men and women religious, but they run a number of programs and other kinds of institutes and universities and schools. And so the other piece of discernment that our religious congregations are doing is to think about the goals and the sectors, right? So we might be present as a religious order, but after a period of discernment, it might make sense that the university that we, has our charism and is that we sponsor is the one that's going to move forward in the strongest possible way. Other folks are very much doing that, again, that personal work, looking at, are we eating meat in our household? Are we carpooling more? Are we incentivizing public transit for our staff? So I think, it's been exciting to see the conversation, the energy, as has been mentioned over and over again. These folks have been animated for a very long time. And some people, very honestly, are ready to tag out, right? And to have other folks tag in. So something we've seen more lately is the invitation to sponsored ministries, to lay collaborators, and to other fellow animators to say, we have this charism, we have this perspective, we have land, we have property. We'd like you to help us do some of the energy portion, the human capital, the human energy piece of it collectively. And so I would say, similar to Ann in terms of, kind of 3 points or 4 points, there is a desire, particularly because we have a number of members in religious orders who are not as active in apostolic ministry anymore based on their age. And so they're very interested in the spirituality and prayer dimension of the Action Platform. They're also very interested in, and I think this will, be more conversation tonight, legislative advocacy. They would really like to use the time that they have for the moral voice around care for our common home and care for the poor. And so that's very much a focus. And then the last area that we continue to hear is a desire to work intersectionally, to know that it's not simply, one aspect of the environment, but it is about our Indigenous brothers and sisters. It is about climate change and migration. It is about water access, right? And so, and really thinking deeply, thoughtfully, intentionally using the charism frame to make sense of these things. We've seen wonderful examples, and you've heard them too, everything from facility and land use pieces to shareholder advocacy. There's a big win recently around oil companies and emissions that was a collaborative effort across a number of religious orders. And so we're enthusiastic about the working groups that we have, about the approaches people are pursuing. And then really, as a person who comes alongside religious congregations, to have the one-on-one conversation with a leader and to know the work they're doing in their congregation, it's deep work, it's spiritual work, it's beautiful work. And so it's a gift to do this and then to do it in relationship to our global partners. And so I'm just encouraged to be part of it. And I think you would be proud with all of the history of men and women religious to, to be in that effort as well. So thank you.
Thank you, Bethany. As we move forward, I'm going to have to ask our speakers to try to stay within the minutes that they've been allotted, because we've got less than an hour for this whole webinar. So next we move to healthcare, and Indus Bugnardi from Catholic Health Association will be giving us a 5-minute presentation.
Thank you, Paz, and you can cut me off if I go over. Thank you to Catholic Climate Covenant and Creighton University for sponsoring this important event. My name is Indus Bugnardi. I'm with the Catholic Health Association. We're the national leadership organization for Catholic healthcare. We represent hospitals, healthcare systems, long-term care facilities, and sponsors of our hospitals. So we have 600 hospitals, Catholic hospitals across the country, and over 1,600 long-term care facilities and other healthcare organizations. CHA right now is planning to reach out to some of our member systems that are leaders in environmental responsibility and sustainability to help them shape the Laudato Si Action Platform resources for the healthcare sector. I think it's interesting we're following the religious orders, because it was really the religious orders that pushed Catholic healthcare over 20 years ago to start focusing on environmental issues. And so Catholic healthcare has had a great start. We've had various initiatives to educate healthcare professionals and the leaders of healthcare organizations about the importance of not only being responsible for what they do within their organizations, but how they impact their communities and how they are a powerful voice at advocacy around environmental issues. So we're hoping that we can help shape the Laudato Si Action Platform resources, and also help encourage our members to be early participants so that they can help shape the resource library and help build strong communities of practice. I'm just going to take a few minutes or just a moment to talk about some of the work of our members. Ascension, Common Spirit, and Providence St. Joseph are 3 of our biggest members, and they've signed on to the Healthcare Without Harm Climate Challenge. And Healthcare Without Harm is a global organization that works with healthcare to help them address their environmental footprint, help them become anchors in their community, fighting for clean environments, and also to become leaders in global advocacy in environmental health and justice. So the Healthcare Climate Challenge has 3 pillars. One is mitigation, which is reducing the carbon footprint of their organizations and fostering low carbon healthcare. The second pillar is resilience, so preparing for the impacts of extreme weather. Low income people in low income communities are very vulnerable to the impacts of extreme weather events, and then also shifting the burden of disease from these communities. And finally, leadership is the third pillar. So educating our staff and the public while promoting public policies that protect the public health from climate change. So Providence St. Joseph actually just announced that they're aiming to be carbon negative by 2030. And another one of our big health systems is going to be announcing something similar soon. Another effort with Healthcare Without Harm is the formation of the California and Washington State Health Climate Alliances. And these are coalitions that are large healthcare systems, Catholic and secular, and they work on regulatory and legislative issues at the state level around environmental issues. So I'd like to just close by saying that the Laudato Si Action Platform sponsors are very committed to making this be a grounds up implementation effort. So they know that they have to meet participants where they are, that even within a sector, you're going to have people from very different realities. And so I really appreciate that focus, and that the healthcare sector has been dealing with COVID for the past year. So I feel like our work might be a little slow getting started, but the passion and motivation is surely there to take action.
Thank you, Indu.
Mhm.
And I'm seeing that most folks are starting to see the depth and breadth of the work of the Catholic community on these issues. Moving right along to organizations and groups. Scott Hurd with Catholic Charities USA.
Yes, thank you, Paz, and good evening, everyone. My name is Scott Hurd, and I am with Catholic Charities USA, which is a covenant partner of the Catholic Climate Covenant. I also wear another hat. I'm the board chair of the Catholic Climate Covenant. And when the Laudato Si Action Platform was originally announced, there were only 6 sectors. And the question was, well, where on earth do organizations like Catholic Charities fit in? So they're very gracious, and they created another sector, another category for us. In the United States, the 2 organizations that are part of the working group are Catholic Charities and Pax Christi, 2 very different organizations in that we provide direct social services, and Pax Christi is mostly an educational and advocacy group, although we do a lot of advocacy. So what's coming down the pike for organizations like ours are really broad categories of discernment that individual organizations can reflect on and identify action steps that are appropriate and applicable to the size, shape, and capacity of their organizations. I know we're running out of time, so I'll just take a quick moment and talk about how Catholic Charities agencies in the United States are implementing the vision of Laudato Si, which hopefully is replicable in some fashion for other organizations. And we like to stress in Catholic Charities that because the overall message of Laudato Si is care for creation and care for the poor, since our mission is to address and reduce poverty in the United States, everything we do is organically related to Laudato Si. So we're trying to underscore that message in our leadership formation activities, in our communications, etc. That this is not an esoteric Vatican document, but really lies at the heart of who we are and what we do as Catholic Charities. So very quickly, our 7 strategic priority areas in Catholic Charities are disaster response. We've seen a lot of that, from wildfires to collapsing condominium disasters in Florida, affordable housing, immigration and refugee services, behavioral health, food and nutrition, which includes water, very important topic in Laudato Si, social enterprise and workforce development, and advocacy and social policy. And what we do, we like to lift out all the passages in that encyclical that relate to each of these strategic priority areas, so that our network, our staff, our leaders, our volunteers get buy-in. And then we like to lift up the really creative and exciting ways that our agencies are putting this into play. And Paz, are you shuttle me out the door? Okay, so call me sometime. I got some great examples, some of which involve the Catholic Climate Covenant and Catholic Energies. We have solar panels in DC. We have solar panels in Nevada. We have water in Flint, Michigan. We have community farms. So I'll stop there, but we're very excited about this moving forward for the next 7 years.
Thank you, Scott. And no, this isn't the last time that we're going to bring this group together to talk. So look for another webinar where we'll have extended time and talk about it all. Moving along to educational institutions. James Burke from Lewis University is joining us today.
Peace and all good to everyone. I have a new understanding of the urgency that faces us all. I'm going to try to do this in 3 minutes. I teach at Lewis University in the suburbs of Chicago, but about a year ago, the International Association of Jesuit Universities convened a working group to look at how universities could combine three things. How we could integrate the Laudato Si Goals with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, with, as Sister Anne said, a grounding in the charism of the faith-based institutions that we would be working with, but also the philosophical traditions of the secular universities that we would be working with. The combination of all those three, enriched especially by the vision and prophetic sense of Laudato Si, we're hoping that institutions, I'm speaking particularly for the colleges and universities here, would be able to energize creative, transformative Laudato Si action plans for their universities. And I learned from Michael Tarian that it would be important to align this with our strategic plans, which, as you can imagine, in the kinds of institutions we're talking about is a daily sort of task. We have worked the International Association of Jesuit Universities and the Association of Catholic Colleges and Universities in the United States have been asked to move our product, which is called University Pathways to Laudato Si, an interactive website that would help universities, whether they are at the beginning stage, whether they are at the mid-range stage, or whether they're in the advanced stage of moving toward integral ecology, to take this journey with all of you and really accelerate what the church with people of goodwill is doing to transform the situation. I'll put in the chat, right now, you could go to the Laudato Si Action Platform, and I liked what Bethany said. We might find that we're going to, on that platform, I've already signed up as a family, for my family. I haven't told anybody, but we'll do the synodality thing in a moment. People can, if you are a student, a faculty member, a staff member, or an alumna of a university, or a community that is sponsoring a university, you could pledge right now that you would work to help your college or university actually consider going on the plan. The second thing that we're doing right now is Dr. Michael Shook from Loyola, who University of Chicago, who is the head of the Vatican's working group for colleges and universities. He's actually, we're calling ourselves co-leaders. We've learned a lot from Women Religious. And so he's managing this whole collaboration of about 100 scholars and educators from around the world who are developing the university pathways as part of the Laudato Si Action Platform. So you could also contact Mike or myself. I'm another co-leader. I'm managing commitments for the Vatican Dicastery's working group on colleges and universities. We're trying to, Mike and I hope to jumpstart some universities who will want to be in the first cohort October 4th of 2021. So we'd be glad to talk with you. I'll put our emails in the chat.
Thank you, James. And I'm sorry that I have to move everybody so much along. I wish we had more time. Finally, for the economic sector, we have Elizabeth Garlow. She's co-convener of the Francesco Collaborative and fellow on faith and finance at New America. Elizabeth.
Hey everyone, it's great to be with you. I'll try to be brief as the caboose in the train here. So as was mentioned, I'm one of the co-conveners of the Francesco Collaborative. We are part of the Economy of Francesco initiative here in the US, and we are essentially a network of entrepreneurs, capital stewards, scholars, and social movement leaders that really want to draw upon the wisdom of our Catholic lineage and social teaching to help transform the economy. So for many of us, Pope Francis's call to hear the cry of the earth and the cry of the poor has been the inspiration to try and pioneer new strategies that do move our money and our entrepreneurial efforts in the direction of an integral ecology. So the tenets of Laudato Si are really helping transform how we approach our financial management practices as households, as parishes, healthcare and education institutions, and more. As Sister Anne had noted previously, religious orders have helped pioneer some of the work in this domain as well, being among the first to really divest their retirement accounts or their endowments from environmentally harmful investments. We believe that from an economic perspective, focusing on democratic ownership models like cooperatives is really consistent with the principles of Laudato Si. We've launched a free newsletter called Ownership Matters, to help educate the public on the solidarity economy. And I will drop a link in the chat after this in case folks are interested in signing up for that and reading a little bit more. And finally, we really believe that we need relationships or this communal infrastructure that was discussed to help take steps toward a new economy. So we've made some important strides through the Economy of Francesco initiative, but we recognize that we still have very far to go. So we're really excited about the promise of the Laudato Si Action Platform to help mobilize everyone in service of an economy that promotes the common good, that is about ensuring human dignity and protecting creation and our shared well-being. So I wanted to share just some of the early activities that we've been formulating to help mobilize shared action as part of the economic sector. Some of these, particularly the work in ethical investing, is something that we're really focused on through the Economy of Francesco by running workshops, peer-to-peer workshops and circles to help people participate in that community to guide their action and their next steps. So one of the first high-level outcomes is thinking about how we build and support the circular economy. So by circular economy, we're really thinking about that practice of repurposing and revamping of goods and minimizing what goes into the waste stream. This may include things like purchasing from retailers that use recycled materials in their production of goods, or entailing kind of practicing sustainable and fair purchasing for households where possible. Another is, as I mentioned earlier, ensuring that financial investments are ethical and sustainable. And this is about becoming aware of where our money and our investments are at as individuals and as institutions, and what they're contributing to in the world, what they're facilitating in the world. After we become aware of that, it's about moving to a place of do no harm. And then eventually moving to a place of restoring creation that has been harmed through today's dominant paradigm of extractive finance. So this includes things like university endowments or religious orders or others, parishes even divesting from fossil fuels or something that might be harmful to people and planet. As well as individuals and as households and families trying to invest in socially responsible enterprises through things like crowdfunding efforts, or maybe considering how you move your banking into an institution like a local credit union that's cooperatively owned and offers financial products with clear social investment criteria. Additionally, we're looking at this question of how to ensure the dignity of workers. So that might mean supporting cooperative management practices in your own workplace, or trying to support cooperatives in your community. We know there are a lot of purchasing cooperatives, particularly in the food retail space. And then finally, thinking about participating in the gift economy. So by gift economy, we're talking about the free giving of goods and services without necessarily the expectation or need of compensation. Something really powerful that we can teach to young people in our lives in particular. So maybe seeking out opportunities to barter goods and services with neighbors, with family members, etc. I just moved back to the Detroit area and have been very much enjoying my neighborhood's Buy Nothing page on Facebook. Some of you may have participated in this, but it's about, again, trying to minimize waste in our ecosystem and encourage the sharing of goods and materials. So I'll pause there and thank you so much.
Thank you, Elizabeth. We're getting quite a bit of questions. We'll get to them. But at this point, we're doing a little bit of a shift, but it's not a huge shift. We're going to be talking now about how the covenant is going to be helping all of you work on the issue of the Laudato Si Action Platform. And first on the agenda, I'm going to call my colleague Elena Gaona, and she is going to give you some exciting news. I know that some of you in another breakout had a little bit of a sort of sneak peek, but this is really the big launch. So Elena, it's all yours.
Thank you, Paz. I'm excited to share this. So we wanted to give the U.S. sectors like a home. You know, we heard from different sectors being at different levels and families, sectors not really having a lead yet. So how do we encompass something that's all encompassing for all the sectors at the different levels and speaks to everyone and engages people who maybe are not in any of the sectors, not connected, even though they kind of should be. So we are working with a wonderful company called Covalent Logic, and Stafford Wood has created, and her team have created this media campaign. It's a media and engagement campaign. So I'll walk through it and then see if there's any time for questions. So the goal was to convey the message of Laudato Si to inspire US Catholics to engage with the Vatican's campaign. The target is the 7 sectors. And so the message before you see the logo is we're all part of God's planet. Instead of having Laudato Si as part of the title, it was like infusing the spirit of it, but having more language that was just more user-friendly generally, would speak to everyone who maybe isn't as involved as the people in this room, with the church, I mean. So this is the logo. It's a stained glass that encapsulates the creation story from Genesis and focuses on the positive, the perfection of God's creation. You have the, I'll break it down in the next slide, actually. So you have the night, the day, the sun, the northern stars, the halo around the dove representing peace, and the trees, land, flowers. At the bottom, you'll see 7 bars for the 7 sectors, 7 years, 7 days of creation. It's all kind of circular. The fish, the sea, the mountains. And so for the 7 sectors, you'll see these same colors repeated. The 7 sectors have icons. Here are the icons. The religious orders one has changed a little, so I'll share that separately on the website. But you'll see the families, parishes, dioceses, educational institutions, healthcare, organizations, economic sector. It's very similar to the Vatican's Laudato Si Action Platform icons. We wanted to kind of reflect it, but again, give it that US feel for the campaign. So the messaging draws on the text for Laudato Si with clear acts for engaging with the website. We have a website called godsplanet.us. The US represents US and it represents us. So it's God's planet because he created it, but it's up to us also to take care of it. So we were trying to bring that in. So there will be posters, downloadables, all of these materials will be like you can customize them. All of our partners here and all of our partners who want to partner with this campaign can use this materials free. You can download the logo and there will be some materials like this, but you can create your own. The main channel is the website, which is live now. We also have a couple of channels on Instagram and Facebook, which I wanted to drop in the chat, but I'm sharing screen, so I'll drop it in as soon as I finish talking. So those are also live now, Facebook and Instagram. On the website, you'll see stories. One of the main things that we want to do is inspire groups from other sectors with what are some things that are already being done. We want it to be like forward-looking, positive, we can make a difference. And so thank you for the partners who have already contributed stories. They're on there, but we have a link on the website where you can contribute more stories. Tell us what you're up to. This media campaign is not to get in the way of anything that the sectors are already doing. It's to enhance it, walk in solidarity, give us something that ties us all together. And we'll speak to, again, people who are Catholic and care about this issue, but maybe haven't gotten involved yet. The assets, again, logo, posters, flyers, t-shirts, window clings. The window clings are so awesome because they sit on your car and it looks like a stained glass window on your car traveling with you. The case studies are stories, and those are the ones that we welcome more of. The social media graphics and messaging will continually update. We have the soft launch, basically it's right now, and we put out a press release today, but it's going to continue for 7 years. So we can continue adding to all of these materials. And that's why the stories are so important. And there's photos that Covalent Logic has secured for the campaign. So if you go to God's Planet, you'll see all of this. And the materials to download are not quite there yet, but they will be soon. The case studies are the stories. So we start off with a very personal narrative of a woman who is Catholic and began doing cleanups. And she's a beautiful photographer and has helped us by giving us photos for the campaign. And then just what a difference she's making now. It's a regular thing and she's making a difference in her community. The co-branded participation is, if you're already a sector in here or you're a parish already doing work, you could just get these t-shirts and it kind of indicates to others, we're Catholics, we're doing this together, learn more about it. So we want people to be excited and proud of it, but also it's kind of like a marketing tool to get others excited. So you can put your logo. These are the different t-shirts that we have now. Like if your church does a cleanup, you could order these, do the cleanup together, and again, help us with the campaign and create that excitement for the people that are working with your community. I'll go back to this one to say many materials will be free and some of these will be like low cost. And the money goes right back into more efforts to help the campaign and help more Catholics get on board. So what we need from you is just, you can share the site, use the materials, send us stories, identify any other promotional needs you may have, and offer your suggestions for new channels of distribution. For example, we don't have LinkedIn right now, so that's just an example that we can always grow in how we reach folks. And so you can email me any ideas, and if there's any technical issues, here's an email for Stafford Wood, who has helped us with this campaign. I'll stop sharing so that I can drop the, these are the two channels on Instagram and Facebook that you can join now.
Thank you, Elena. I told folks that we would probably not have time for questions because we are kind of time limited, but if they send an email to info@catholicclimatecovenant.org, we promise to respond. Moving right along, Dan, you've got big news, so give it.
Yeah, some big news. So she probably doesn't have it circled in her calendar, but I have October 18th, 2019 circled in mine because that's the day that I had a phone call with Sister Mary Jo Nelson of Our Lady of Victory Missionary Sisters, which started a relationship that has, for us, certainly has blossomed. They have been very, very generous donors to the Covenant. And just want to let her say a few words about why they're supporting the Covenant, and they're also, for short, it's called Victory Knoll Sisters. So keep that in mind. After Sister Mary Jo has a few words, I want to come back to that for just a moment. Sister Mary Jo.
Thanks, Dan. It's a privilege for me to honor and an honor to represent my community tonight, because it's all of us that have been part of our gift. A few years ago, we started looking for organizations who were aligned with our mission of presence and service to those living in poverty, and were advocates for social transformation. We knew we needed to collaborate and partner with others as we entered into the next phase of our life and mission as a congregation. The Catholic Climate Covenant became our first recipient of a legacy gift. And the reason is that they are collaborators, they are advocates, they're educators for climate justice, and they had a strong alignment with the mission and values of the Victory Knoll Sisters. And so the other piece is that we knew that there was no way we could share our resources or use our resources without partnering and collaborating with others. And that goes beyond our own circle. And it seems to us that the partnership and the collaboration beyond our own circles is a way for a greater impact of hope for those with the greatest need. And so it is our real privilege to be able to partner with Catholic Climate Covenant and have you be part of our legacy into the future. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mary Jo. I think some of us are tearing up, and but we are enormously grateful, and we wanted to share that wealth that has been bestowed upon us by Victory Knoll Sisters. So we have created a grant program. Many of you were involved in our fundraiser for our end of the fiscal year for our June fundraiser, and we asked Sister Mary Jo and Victory Knoll Sisters if we could name a small grants program after them, and they readily agreed. So they gave us $50,000 to start the effort, and we asked all of you to help us double that. And I'm thrilled to say that we've more than doubled that. We have about $120,000 that we now have available to give out. So I'm just going to quickly share my screen so you can see both the new website. Let's see. Both a new, and if you can look right here, you'll see grants. Click on that link. Click on that link, and there's an explanation of the funding program. We are offering $1,000. I know it's not all the money in the world, but if you're a parish or an individual, a group that want to begin something in your community to better care for God's good gift of creation. It could be community gardens, it could be beginning a recycling program, it could be an educational effort. Whatever you think you need that money for, we're going to review those applications and then give that money out. So, you know, it's potentially 100 or so projects that we could fund, which would be just enormously satisfying for us. So you can go ahead and look on our website, godsplanet.us/grants, and then down here there's a link to apply for a grant. And we just asked some basic questions, and you can see those here, and encourage you to apply. I believe October 4th is the date that we have set for a deadline. So you have some time to think about it, and if we have additional money after that, then we will certainly continue the program. So thank you, Sister Mary Jo, Our Lady of Victory Missionary Sisters, and all of you for your generosity that we are now able to do this small grants program, and we certainly hope to keep it going in the years ahead.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Sister Mary Jo. Thank you, Dan. And now I call on Jose Aguto, the Associate Director of the Covenant, who has the unenviable task of doing his report in 3 minutes.
6 minutes.
I was going to 3 minutes.
Thank you, Paz. And this is a relatively late-breaking development. And it's around the advocacy dimension of our work, seeking to unify the U.S. Catholic Church around a call for ambitious climate action. So 2 months ago, a group of Catholic organizations, U.S. Catholic organizations, discerning their approach to the next round of climate talks in Glasgow in November, were pondering what actions to take. And their considerations and discernments dovetailed with the work that we are doing in the advocacy work group that we'll be presenting tomorrow, and recognizing that we needed a unified advocacy ask. And we agreed upon an approach that was seeking to unify the U.S. Catholic Church as broad a spectrum in the diversity of our church as possible around a call for climate action, based on what I would say of what we say in the Nicene Creed, that we believe in one holy Catholic and Apostolic Church. That would be delivered to our nation's political leaders, recognizing, as Professor Maureen Day stated yesterday, that partisanship is one of our greatest obstacles to ambitious climate action, and also pointing towards what Cardinal Cupich said yesterday, that we ought to be pointed towards the common good and not competition and not winners and losers. That would be time to impact national legislative policy developments, as well as the UNFCCC negotiations this fall, based on foundational church teachings and statements that seek to heal divisions and build bridges across our church and nation, that are founded on the shared love of God, neighbor, and creation, that truly seek to transcend the partisanship through a moral call. And so last week, all of these various representatives gave the covenant permission to present this to you, both Catholic institutions, as a letter, and then as Catholic individuals, as a petition that we plan to convey to the administration and Congress during the season of creation, September 1st to October 4th, hoping and praying to move the hearts and minds of our nation's leaders towards transformative action, that we as a church, as beautiful and powerful as our church is, can manifest this social transformation that Father Josh and Sister Mary Jo have talked about. And I'm just going to run you through what is on through a share screen, this feature on the godsplanet.us website. I hope you can see that. Did you see that? Thumbs up on that? Okay. Okay, thank you, Dan. So if you go to the Get Involved section, boom, you hit that. And then, help me out here. There we go. And then you see Advocacy. And then you go to Advocacy, which is just a scroll down. And then there is a petition for individuals to sign. And you can do that right now if you'd like, if you approve of the language. And then there's also a letter signed by Catholic institutions. The overall content, I'll say the petition is the concise version. And so I just want to run through that a little bit and actually just state it for you, because it is relatively short. I hope you will support it. Feel free to tweet it out to your friends, to your legislators, to your church leaders. As U.S. Catholics united in the protection of children, generations to come, and our common home, we urgently appeal to you, President Biden and members of Congress, to come together and lead our nation and world towards a sustainable and thriving future. Please work beyond partisanship for the common good by enacting ambitious national solutions and demonstrating global leadership that address the sources and threats of climate change and respond to the cry of the earth and the cry of the poor. And so our particular asks are that we drastically reduce greenhouse gas emissions so that global warming is limited to 1.5 degrees Celsius increase, and that we consistently prioritize the needs of peoples most vulnerable to the impacts of climate change in the design and funding of national and international programs along an array of policy platforms. And then we finish with something that Dan puts at the bottom of all of these emails, the Laudato Si, 130, Pope Francis, what kind of world do we want to leave to those who come after us, to children who are now growing up? This is a moral call of the highest order, really just seeking to divorce ourselves from the partisan self-interest, and then lifting up the beauty of our Catholic faith and our Catholic voice that is further extended into the letter, which you will also see on this website. I will drop both of those links there. And we, the advocacy work group, will be talking about this during our session tomorrow. So thank you for listening. Thanks, Paz. I'm done.
Thank you, Jose. And again, I apologize. I've tried to answer as many questions on the chat and on the Q&A, but email us and we'll try to respond one-on-one. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for all the panelists for being here, for sharing your wisdom and gifts. I'd like to invite Sister Anne to lead us in a closing prayer.
Thank you. So let's take a moment, gather ourselves, recall the many blessings of this day and the graces of this evening. And on the occasion of this feast of our sister, Saint Kateri Tekakwitha, we ask her and all those who first walked this land to bless and to forgive us. So let us pray. Creator God, source of all life, we praise and thank you for the many gifts of this day, for the blessing of your presence in each star in the sky and every flower in the field, in each creature who shares our common home and every grain of wheat that nourishes us, in each drop of water which sustains us, in every person who cares for us. God of mercy and compassion, forgive us for the times that we fail to recognize your presence among us. Forgive us our blindness to the daily miracle of creation. Forgive us our deafness to the cries of earth and those made poor by our indifference. Forgive us our hardness of heart that separates us one from another. God of abundance, we pray, give us the grace to know that we are one in you. Give us the grace to welcome your creatures abandoned and forgotten, to care for our common home, and to live in right relationship with you, our God, with our neighbors near and far, and with earth, our common home. Give us the grace to become your beloved community. We ask all this through the power of your great and Holy Spirit, whose breath gives life to the world. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Sister Anne. And thank you, everybody. Good night. Can we do a Waltons? Good night, Dan. Good night, Michael.
Good night, Paz.
Good night, Kat.
Good night, John Boy.
Good night, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you, Dan.
Good night.